Hey, how we doing, guys? So today I wanted to do a comparison between the Razer Orbweaver and the Razer Tartarus V2. I've owned the Orbweaver for close to a year now, and then the Tartarus V2 for about maybe a little bit under 6 months. And I've come to know, as far as PC gaming, I don't like to use a regular keyboard. I definitely prefer the game pads to anything else. And I have to have one of these on my desk if I'm gaming. So you can pick up the Orbweaver I found for about around 40 bucks. And you can get the Tartarus V2 for about 80 bucks brand new. And I wanted to go over with you guys the differences and which one is better than which. And just to give you guys a general idea if you want to pick up one of these for gaming.
Okay, so the first thing you notice when you look at these two keypads side by side is that they're virtually the same size. Now, there is a slight weight difference because the Orbweaver does have these metal adjustment points where you can adjust the thumb, the wrist rest, and the palm rest. And the Tartarus V2 just has one top part that is removable, and it has two adjustment points just for, I guess, longer fingers, or you have a little bit of a longer hand. So I do have to give a point to the Orbweaver just because more adjustability is always good. On to the next point, which is the keys and switches. So the Orbweaver actually uses actual mechanical blue switches. They feel really good. And the Tartarus V2 uses these Razer Mecha membrane switches. And they feel just as clicky as the blues, but they're slightly mushy at the bottom. I don't really like the way that they bottom out. But overall, both of these feel pretty good, but I do prefer the Orbweaver. And I wish they would have kept those with the new iteration of the keypad. So the key layout is almost identical, except on the Tartarus V2, the 20 key is not a 20 key. It's just a scroll wheel there that acts just as a scroll wheel on a mouse would. Only you can change these to do different things if you'd prefer to do something else. You could make it your volume slider or maybe just different buttons or something like that. Now, another thing with the keys is the directional stick. That's one of the main reasons why I swapped over to the Tartarus V2. I prefer the actual D-pad that's on the Tartarus V2 versus this little 8 directional stick. And you can disable the other 4 directions, all of the corner directions, but I still prefer this. It feels better and you definitely know what you're pressing. I don't really have any accidental presses on the V2. Another small difference is the spacebar. On the Tartarus V2, the spacebar is an actual keyboard button. On the Orbweaver, it's more like a mouse click. It doesn't have any bottom filling. It's just a short click, and it's easy to misinterpret if you press that or if you didn't press it sometimes. And just a tiny little difference on the button that's above the D-pad. On the Tartarus V2, it is a circle rather than a rectangular shape. And this doesn't really make a big difference. I'm just pointing it out to you guys. So the next thing that I want to move on to is the Synapse, which is the software that you use to customize these keypads. So the Tartarus V2 uses the new Synapse 3.0, and then the Orbweaver uses the older version, which is the Synapse 2.0. Now, aside from looks, they're not terribly different. You can pretty much customize the same things. You can do multimedia functions, keyboards, keyboard buttons, macros. I feel like they do about the same thing. I do like the feel of the Synapse 3 more, though, and it crashes much less. I had a lot of problems with the Synapse 2.0. And my biggest pet peeve with 2.0, and another reason why I switched over, is because you have to log in. You have to create a Razer Central account. And on the new version, you can just create a guest account, which is much more preferable. I don't like logging into those things. I'm not going to be swapping out PCs, so I feel like I just don't want to have that extra step when I open up the Synapse software. And then sometimes on Synapse 2.0, you would turn your computer back on and you wouldn't be logged in anymore, which is a big, it's pretty annoying when you're just trying to get on and play the game. Now, I won't compare the RGB lighting between these two because I do have the original Orbweaver and not the Orbweaver Chroma. But I just want to say that they both look pretty good as far as, you know, just color, the colors and the brightness. The only thing you can adjust on the Orbweaver is the brightness because it only has those green LED lights. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is the use cases. So using this versus a traditional keyboard. And to me, the biggest benefit, the two biggest benefits I would say are one, the comfort factor. It feels so much better just holding on to one of these. There's like a place for each of your fingers to be versus on a keyboard where it's just a little bit more uncomfortable. It's not as ergonomic as the keypads. Now, on the second biggest benefit is this whole thumb area where you have these extra buttons. On a traditional keyboard, you only really can jump with press the space bar with your thumb, which is, taken away from its use. I mean, you could use your thumb for other things because, you're not constantly jumping, So the fact that I can use those directional buttons or that top button, which I usually use for escape, and the directional buttons, which, can serve different purposes depending on what game you're playing or whatever, if you're editing or something like that. So the next benefit of using one of these versus an original keyboard is the additional desk space. And you can use this, what I mostly use it for is just that additional mouse room to be able to just move my mouse however I want. And I feel like that's a big help. And the last thing, which is really more of a personal thing, the fact that these look really cool and anybody who comes or sees your desk setup will be like, oh, what is that? Especially with the Tartarus V2 because it does have that full RGB lighting.
Alrighty guys, so that is the end of the video. If you guys have any questions, make sure you comment down below. If you did like the video, please like and subscribe. I am trying to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark before the end of the year. And thank you guys for watching.